carried his nuclear weapons. Russian President Vladimir Putin moved a number of his tactical nuclear guns this week amid the conflict with Ukraine. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko confirmed on Tuesday that a shipment of tactical nuclear guns from Russia turned into completed, the Associated Press said. Lukashenko previously stated that the motion of nuclear guns from Russia to Belarus is related to efforts to decrease threats from Poland, a member of NATO. Amid Moscow's battle with Ukraine, Newsweek reached out to the Russian and Belarusian ministries of foreign affairs through electronic mail for comment. The statement this week comes some months after Russia first introduced it began planning to station some tactical nuclear guns in Belarus, and best friend of Putin and Moscow.in might also. Lukashenko confirmed some nuclear weapons had been already being sent to Belarus, prompting a few issue from the USA and other Western countries. The movement of the nuclear guns has already all started, Lukashenko said in May. Additionally, at the same time as assembly with newshounds in Moscow, Reuters reported, Russian Protection Minister Sergei Shoigu also spoke about the motion of nuclear guns in May. Additionally, pronouncing, the collective West is essentially waging an undeclared war towards our countries. He introduced that Western international locations are searching for, to lengthen and enhance the armed conflict in Ukraine. In June, Putin confirmed that the primary cargo of tactical nuclear guns had made it to Belarus and they had been being stationed inside the U.S. He turned into requested about the motion of nuclear guns to Belarus and if Russia has considered the opportunity of the use of them. Why need we threaten the entire global? I have already stated that the use of severe measures is possible in case there may be a hazard to Russian statehood, Putin stated in response, in line with the BBC, adding that it should function a reminder to another nations, taking into consideration causing a strategic defeat on us. We do not see any indications that Russia is preparing to apply a nuclear weapon, Blinken said in June, adding that the US will preserve to screen the situation very intently and very cautiously. Russia's war with Ukraine is nearing its 0.3312 months in February with preventing persevering within numerous components of Ukraine. The United States has furnished Ukraine with several specific defense assistance programs, including economic aid and army gadget. Sometime this summertime, if President Vladimir Putin may be believed, Russia moved some of its quick-variety nuclear guns into Belarus, in the direction of Ukraine and onto NATO's doorstep. The declared deployment of the Russian weapons at the territory of its neighbor and constant best friend marks a new degree inside the Kremlin's nuclear saber-rattling over its invasion of Ukraine and any other bid to discourage the West from increasing Navy assist to Kiev. Neither Putin nor his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko, said what number of have been moved, only that Soviet technology centers inside the USA were ready to house them, and that Belarusian pilots and missile crews had been trained to apply them. The US and NATO haven't showed the pass. NATO Secretary Preferred Jens Stoltenberg denounced Moscow's rhetoric as dangerous and reckless, but said in advance this month the alliance hasn't seen any change in Russia's nuclear posture. Even as a few professionals doubt the claims via Putin and Lukashenko, others worried that Western intelligence is probably not able to screen such motion. In advance this month, CNN quoted U.S. intelligence officials as pronouncing that they had no reason to doubt Putin's declare approximately the transport of the first batch of the weapons to Belarus and noted it is able to be hard for the U.S. to tune them. In contrast to nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missiles which can spoil complete cities, tactical nuclear guns for use towards troops on the battlefield may have a yield as small as approximately 1 kiloton. The U.S. bomb in Hiroshima and World Struggle II became 15 kilotons. The gadgets are compact, used on bombs, missiles and artillery shells. They could be discreetly carried on a truck or plane. Alexandra Elsin, an unbiased Minsk-based totally Navy analyst, said the guns use containers that emit no radiation might have been flown into Belarus without Western intelligence seeing it. They easily healthy in a regular Il-76 transport aircraft, Elsin said. There are dozens of flights a day, and it's very difficult to song down that special flight. The people may want to fail to monitor it. Belarus has 25 underground centers built in the course of the bloodless war for nuclear-tipped intermediate-variety missiles that could resist missile attacks, Elsin said. Simplest 5 or 6 such depots may want to simply save tactical nuclear weapons, he added. However, the military operates at all of them to idiot Western intelligence. Early in the battle, Putin referenced his nuclear arsenal by vowing time and again to use all method necessary to protect Russia. He has toned down his statements currently. However, a pinnacle lieutenant maintains to grasp the chance with terrifying ease. Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy head of Russia's Protection Council who served as a placeholder president in 2008-12 due to the fact Putin became term confined, unleashes close to each day threats that Moscow gained hesitate to apply nuclear weapons. Moscow's protection doctrine envisages a nuclear response to an atomic strike or maybe an assault with conventional weapons that threaten the very lifestyles of the Russian kingdom. That indistinct wording has led some Russian professionals to urge the Kremlin to spell out those situations in extra detail and pressure the West to take the warnings more significantly. The possibility of using nuclear weapons within the contemporary struggle mustn't be concealed, stated Dmitry Trenin, who headed the Moscow Carnegie Center for 14 years before joining Moscow's state-funded Institute for International Economic System and International Relations. The actual, no longer theoretical, attitude of it need to create stimuli for preventing the escalation of the war and sooner or later set the degree for a strategic stability in Europe that would be proper to us. He wrote lately, Western ideals that Putin is bluffing about the use of nuclear guns is a really risky myth, Trenin said. Sergei Karaganov, a top Russian overseas affairs professional who advises Putin's Security Council, said Moscow ought to make its nuclear threats more unique so as to spoil the need of the West, and force it to forestall helping Ukraine because it seeks to reclaim Russian-held areas in a grinding counteroffensive. It's necessary to restore the fear of nuclear escalation, otherwise mankind is doomed, he stated, suggesting Russia set up a ladder of accelerating moves. Deploying nuclear guns in Belarus turned into the first step, Karaganov stated, with perhaps a follow-up of caution. Ethnic Russians in nations supporting Ukraine to evacuate regions near facilities that might be nuclear objectives. If that doesn't work, Karaganov cautioned a Russian nuclear strike on Poland, alleging Washington wouldn't dare respond in type to shield a NATO ally, for fear of igniting an international conflict. If we build the right strategy of intimidation or even the use of it, the threat of a retaliatory nuclear or another strike on our territory could be reduced to a minimal, he stated. Handiest if a madman who hates his own United States of America sits inside the White House. Could the US risk to launch a strike within the protection of the Europeans and draw a response, sacrificing Boston for Poznan? The Moscow-based Totally Council of Foreign and Defense Policies, a panel of main army and overseas policy professionals that includes Karaganov, denounced his feedback as an instantaneous chance to all of mankind. At the same time as seasoned Kremlin analysts floated such situations, Lukashenko, the Belarusian chief, says website hosting Russian nuclear guns in his use of is supposed to discourage aggression by using Poland. He claimed some of nuclear guns had been flown to Belarus without Western intelligence noticing, with the rest coming later this 12 months. Officers in Moscow and Minsk said the warheads may be carried by Belarusian Su-25 floor assault jets or suited for brief variety Iskander missiles. Giles, of Chatham House, stated the deployment became approximately cementing Putin's manipulate over Belarus, and did not offer Moscow any navy gain over putting them in Russia's Baltic exclave of Kaliningrad that borders Poland and Lithuania. The West should recognize this as a ploy that has a long way extra to do with Russia's aims for Belarus than any genuine effect on European protection past that, Giles said. Some observers question whether the deployment to Belarus has even occurred. Miles Pomper, a senior fellow at the James Martin Middle for Nonproliferation Research on the Middlebury Institute, challenged Lukashenko's declare that nuclear guns have been covertly flown to Belarus. They're usually moved by using rail, he said, and there aren't any symptoms of the assist elements which you might see that might go with shipments of guns. Others observe Russia ought to have deployed the weapons without adhering to protocols used in the 1990s, while Moscow wanted to reveal the West its nuclear arsenal was comfortable amid economic and political turmoil. Belarusian military analyst Valery Karbalevich said retaining such info mystery can be a Kremlin strategy of applying permanent stress and blackmailing Ukraine and the West. The unknown scares greater than fact. Ailsin, the Russia wants to break the dominance of the dollar, but cannot send oil to India in other currencies. Moscow has been on a drive to replace the usage of the United States dollar in worldwide exchange, but there are barrels of Russian oil caught at sea due to problems with paying in alternative currencies. Shipments of Russian Sokol-grade crude oil to state-owned Indian Oil Corp., or IOC, had been not on time with the aid of fee problems, Reuters pronounced on Tuesday, citing resources acquainted with the matter. The vendor is the kingdom-owned Russian oil agency Rosneft. The trouble arose due to the fact the Rosneft unit selling the oil hasn't been able to open a bank account within the United Arab Emirates to get hold of payments inside the UAE dirham. In line with Reuters, this not on time 6 cargoes of Sokol oil the IOC turned into presupposed to acquire from past due November to December, Reuters suggested, citing delivery facts. So the cargoes have generally been lingering at sea around India and Sri Lanka. IOC and Rosneft did right now reply to requests for remark from Business Insider and Reuters. It is not straightaway clean how a great deal Sokol oil is caught at sea because of the fee issue. Earlier this month, Bloomberg pronounced approximately 5 million barrels of Sokol oil that have been being shipped from Russia to India never arrived. The problems with purchasing Sokol oil spotlight issues of coping with Russia. Amid sweeping sanctions over its invasion of Ukraine, India has emerged as a major customer of Russian oil following swathes of Western sanctions towards Moscow. Which means greenback exchange with Russia is confined, and this is vital since the dollar is the worldwide trade foreign money of desire. To be able to shop for Russian oil, India insisted on settling trades inside the rupee in advance this year. It is because the use of US bucks may want to disclose it to secondary sanctions, and it issues approximately acquiring rubles at a fair rate on the open market. However, Indian authorities have controls at the rupee, and the forex isn't always fully convertible, which means that it cannot without difficulty be changed into every other currency. This poses troubles for Russia, which became caught with billions of rupees in Indian banks earlier this year. India encourages the rupees to be spent in India itself. The problem for Russia is that there is no longer a lot it desires to shop for from India. To get round its rupee conundrum and reduce its currency risks, Russian officials and oil executives have as an alternative been pushing Indian customers to pay them in Chinese yuan. It is also subject to controls and isn't fully convertible, but Russia imports loads extra from China. But the Indian authorities is more and more uncomfortable with yuan trade since there are currency conversion expenses worried and geopolitical competition between Delhi and Beijing. Another forex Russia could use to exchange with India is the UAE dirham. But the UAE is increasing its oversight of Russian companies. Russia's critical bank governor Elvira Nabiullina stated demanding situations with cross-border payments in a current interview with local media. However, delivered the United States of America's financial system has been restructuring swiftly to cope with worldwide sanctions. Russian relevant bank governor Elvira Nabiullina is watching for extra sanctions beforehand. She instructed Russia's RBC media outlet in an interview published on Monday. While Russia has weathered the economic storms of the closing 2 years, Nabiullina warned in opposition to wondering the USA is 10 feet tall, consistent with a TASS State News Corporation translation. She introduced the stress from sanctions can also intensify, so the us of a have to prepare for it. Nabiullina's remarks got here 22 months after Russia invaded Ukraine, triggering sweeping sanctions. But, Russia's economic system nevertheless seems resilient. She did now not point out Ukraine or the struggle in the course of the interview. Nabiullina has been Russia's vital bank governor on account that 2013 and became Russia's economic improvement minister from 2007 to 2012. The 60-year vintage has been credited with guidance the Russian economic system via numerous shocks, including the global monetary disaster of 2007 to 2008 and sanctions that hit Russia after it annexed Crimea in 2014. Now, the technocrat is seen to be supporting President Vladimir Putin's wartime financial system together with her policymaking. Politico Europe currently named Nabiullina its top disruptor this year, mentioning her position in stabilizing Russia's economic system notwithstanding challenges along with sweeping sanctions, a large brain drain, and excessive inflation. The EU Union rolled out its 12th sanctions package in opposition to Russia earlier this month, even as America also tightened sanctions against Russia. Nabi Alina told RBC that Russia's financial system has adapted speedy to sanctions and is restructuring. We see that economic restructuring is occurring quite swiftly, and this is to start with because of the marketplace nature of the economy, especially the business area, which has adjusted in no time, said Nabi Alina, in keeping with TASS. However, she acknowledged challenges, including issues with past border payments and vulnerable investor sentiment amid the swathe of change restrictions in opposition to Russia. Notwithstanding these, Nabi Alina stated she was tremendous that profits at Russian banks will live effective next year, attributing the performance to financial pastime that while Russia's economy appears to be maintaining up nicely amid the warfare in Ukraine, the USA pronounced 5.5% GDP increase within the January 3 area of this year. The U.S. professional monetary information are nearly not possible to verify. Reviews advocate that a great deal of the country's growth is because of big Navy and government spending. Igor Lipsitz, an outstanding Russian economist, informed Reuters final month that the real situation is terrible for the U.S.